Is this like we have to chip in? Is it, do you pick the day at least?
Yeah.
You can,
Yeah, we don't have a day picked yet. Gosh, man, you read everything.
Do what?
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. This is the April 17th, 2018 Council Committee meeting. Welcome. First on the agenda, we've got under police, the towing franchise RFP. Chief Brendel.
We had one bid yesterday we received from Airport Towing. Basically the same price as he's charging us today. We're in a bid, and he raised the franchise fee to $900 a month. So our recommendation is obviously to go with Airport Towing.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Chief?
It was, I think before it was 800. It's roughly around there.
And is the general consensus that we want to stick with the franchise fee? And from what I understand, we're one of the only cities that does that. Okay. Sure. Don't forget to turn.
Who's that? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so the recommendation is to accept that. Is that something that we can do? Well, I guess we can't necessarily do that tonight. We'll do that in the next meeting. Okay, thank you, Chief. If there's nothing else on that, then we'll move to Public Works, the Misty Creek Park.
Yeah, Mayor, I believe you had reported on that at the last meeting, and this was a group of the neighborhood wanted to work on the Misty Creek Park, kind of partner with us. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, we did bring it up, and had an opportunity to meet with some of the citizens there. More than anything, I just wanted to make sure that council was aware there may be a group from the park here at the next meeting. I'm sorry, excuse me, a group from the neighborhood to talk about the park at the next meeting.
Okay. And I think they're looking at, like, are they looking at volunteer time? They're looking at in-kind donation, do we know? Or I guess they're going to talk to us about that at the
From
next
what I
meeting.
understand, they've raised somewhere in the neighborhood of $4,000 that
Okay.
they would like to put in. Some of the things that they have discussed are things like additional park benches, picnic tables, things to that effect. They would eventually like to do some type of play structure, and that might be something that we could budget for next year. But you know, my thought would be that the city also put in some money for the improvements as well, maybe match their match what they want to put in. There has also been a it sounds like there might be some interest in trying to name the park, change the name of the park. Right now, I think it's just called the Misty Creek Park. So that might be another part of their proposal. So more than anything, just giving you the heads up.
Have you had anybody oppose the dog park?
The dog park? This is just this is one of our current parks.
Yeah, I
It's
know
just
that. I
a-
mean, you were talking about putting a dog park up there, correct?
No.
Well, I thought that's
No,
what
this
you
is
were
just,
talking about.
this is just spending some,
Extra
some-
money up there at the park.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm with you now. Thank you.
yeah, just putting it on our radar. Yes. I don't offhand, no. Mr. Blankenship said, any idea what they want to change the name of the park to? Go ahead.
Maybe they could make it Misty Creek / whatever they want.
The Renee Skidmore Memorial?
I withdraw my comments.
That's a good
Was
idea.
that a
Thank you,
payback?
Renee.
Was that a payback for before?
Not at all. All right. If there's nothing else, and no other questions there, we'll move on to the next item. Under Finance and Business Development, we've got the budget changes. Mr. Bodie?
All right, we're live, right? Okay. This mic is hot. Just a few changes that I just kind of wanted to go over. And each of you have in front of you a little 4-page packet that I put together. The first page, I apologize about the size of the font. If we put it up on the screen, it would even be blurrier and even smaller, so I do apologize. But what we're looking at is essentially the 3-year fund statement. The first 3 columns, those are what we presented at the budget retreat back in March. The second column, second 3 columns, the 3-year for taking into account the 12% increase in the CERS rates. The third column is is what it would be if we were looking at a 50% increase in CERS rates. I believe KLC has announced that we're going to be sticking with the phase-in, which is the 12% each of the next, at least the next 3 years is that I have budgeted. So, so we'll kind of be, our main focus will be on that center column, the center 3 columns. Basically what I did since March is I've been kind of taking a look at all our lines of revenue, tweaking them just to give us a more accurate picture of what we can expect over the next 3 years. For instance, if you look at the budget, but 2019 fiscal year budget, you can see an increase from what we originally reported back in March. The same goes for fiscal year 2020 and 21 as well. So we're looking at, by the end of 3 years, we're looking at about a $500,000 increase in revenue from what we originally reported, which is a good thing. Not much to report in the way of expenses. Each department hasn't really come in and said, hey, I need this, I want that, let's add it to the budget. The police had just a small piece of equipment that they needed, but it kind of offset because another piece of equipment they weren't going to purchase. So nothing major to report there. If I could, though, I'd like to draw your attention back down to the bottom of that first page. We can take a look at our unrestricted, unreserved balances. As reported back in March, at the end of 3 years, we were at $5.8 million. With these new figures, we're looking at a 7.7% or $7.7 million budget at the end of those 3 years. We did have to include in our capital budget, we included some radios for both fire and police. We added about $250,000 in each of their budgets for those radios. So the capital fund budget did go up, as we'll take a look at on our next page. Actually, if you wouldn't mind flipping to that second page. So the increases in expenses, with the addition of the fire engines from fire department and the radios, we've increased our spending in infrastructure as well, as you guys have known. So if you look at our fiscal year 19 budget for the capital fund asset, our capital asset fund, we're looking at a negative $2.2 million. So all that means is we just need to transfer more money from our general fund to our capital fund. And as you know, that's one of the revenue lines basically for our capital fund. The payroll license fees is the other source of revenue, but we also have a portion that we transfer into our capital asset fund from our general fund budget. If you flip to the third page, so our general fund statement for the next 3 years, if we increase the amount that we transfer over, after 3 years, it'll bring our fund balance back down to $4.6 million, which is still a pretty healthy fund balance. That's, again, that's unrestricted, unreserved. That's money to spend. But that puts money into our capital asset fund so that we're not running a negative, both for this year and the following year. So all I did basically is, for this year, I increased it. So I figured we increase it about $190,000 again this year, for this fiscal year for the amended budget. Transfer $2.6 million next year, and then each year after that, $1 million. And at the end, our final fourth page, that's our 10-year capital asset fund statement. For the amended budget, again, transferring the money in for this year, increasing that amount of transfer, we have a positive balance. It's a small positive balance for next year, and we can tweak it as the year goes on. But at least we have and you guys telling me how much you guys want to transfer in, but I don't see any other way to fund that without transferring more money in. So 2.6 was just an estimate that I came up with. It gives us a fund balance in a positive direction for next year. We may have to increase it from $1 million even more for the next couple of years, but at the end of 10 years, if we just increase it by $1 million, we're back up over $1 million at the end of the 10 years. But hopefully, also just want to mention that the numbers do not reflect what or project any money that's coming in yet from the Erlanger Cinema property. We know we're going to be getting something. We just don't know what it is yet. So that money, that revenue is not included in these numbers. So it doesn't look as bleak as it is. So that's kind of all I have to report on that. The other funds, the police forfeiture fund, no changes there. Our health insurance fund, no changes with that as well. But I just wanted to point out a couple things with the capital asset fund. And you guys can certainly let me know if you guys want to increase the amount that we transfer, what you guys want to transfer it to. Open to suggestions there as well. Any questions on that front?
I don't see any questions.
Okay.
Have there been years in the past where we've had to transfer the money in?
Correct.
It's almost every year.
Right, yeah. So every year we transfer, and we initially had about, it might have been $500,000 or $600,000. So $1 million a year, it's not that big of an increase. But at least for next year, it does give us a fund balance in a positive direction, which I think the auditors would appreciate. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Bodie? All right. Well, I guess we need to still wait and see what our legislators determine for us.
Right, yeah. So, for your viewing pleasure, I did incorporate the 50% increase, and you guys can see what that would do. Not a drastic difference. We're still at over $6 million for that third year out, even with the 50% increase. So we're still in pretty good shape.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Congress overrode the veto on the pension phase-in, so we have the 12%.
That's great news.
Excellent.
So we kick the can a little bit further.
Yep, for now.
Thank you.
Sure. I think I'm on the docket for the next item as well.
Oh, yeah, you are. The audit RFP. Wonderful.
So, yep. Let's see, So as we know, we submitted the RFP. We submitted it through and advertised it through the Inquirer. I even sent letters out to 8 different auditing firms. We had our bid opening last Thursday. We received 2 bids, the first of which is Von Lehman. The amount of their bids for the next 3 years would be $20,000 even, $20,400, $20,800. With the other was Van Gorder Walker, which is who we have now. Their bids came in at $19,000 even, $19,000 again, and $19,100. So my recommendation would be to continue our services with Van Gorder Walker.
Sounds like it would make sense. And I don't think that's something that we need to vote on. Yeah, okay.
Great.
All right.
That's all I have.
Seems like it makes sense. If I don't see any other comments or on that, then that's the route we'll move forward with. Thank you, Mr. Bodie.
Thank you.
All right, then next we've got under codes, building, and zoning, the small cell towers. Mr. Burke, are you prepared to talk about this?
I'll go ahead and
Okay.
discuss this. So this came up a month or so ago. We got I believe it was Verizon that wanted to put a couple smaller antennas on some of the existing poles on Houston and Donaldson, which they are doing right now. I was told, speaking to some of the other city administrators and talking to Jack, PDS, we went in with PDS a year or so ago to develop an ordinance to monitor small cell towers. After researching the ordinance created by PDS, it only applies to towers that are being built solely for that purpose. So it doesn't cover adding on, like they're doing on Houston and Donaldson, the extra antennas on top of existing utility poles. With that said, we do have an ordinance here that's been drafted by PDS. I don't see any reason for us to pass an ordinance on this right now. It definitely hasn't affected us. I think a year or so ago when they started bringing us to light, PDS was concerned that this was going to start being a popular thing, and citizens were kind of worried that cell phone companies were going to throw poles up in front of their houses because of the right-of-way. I don't foresee that being an issue unless there's any council that are eager to pass this ordinance. I think it's a little lengthy. It's a little, after speaking with Jack, I think it's a little too detailed for anything that we can kind of see on the horizon right now. So unless anybody has any suggestions otherwise, I think we will table this until there's actually a need for it. I don't see any reason to pass it right now, and I don't think it's going to be clearing anything up for us in any time in the near future. So just wanted to look at it, do the research, see if there's anybody else that had a difference of opinion that maybe was here when this was being created, because I know I believe we put some money into the creation of this with PDS, but I don't see it being necessary for Erlanger right now. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Mrs. Collins.
How much money will we get from Verizon for allowing them to add their little thing on there, their antenna?
There is no franchise set up. And actually, this is the original contract, and I guess there was some litigation within a franchise. The only part of this that does talk about finances is the permit cost, which I think is appropriate if we would ever get into this. I personally don't think we really want to go down the route of the franchise. I don't think it'd be very beneficial. Edgewood's the only city that I know of that does have that, and they don't utilize it. It's just in the ordinance to be used if needed in the future. So again, if that's something that the council is interested in, maybe we do go ahead with this. I just don't know if the benefit's really going to be there for all the effort that it would take to put in.
All I remember is it used to be that if a company came in, you could actually have one put in your backyard if you were agreeable to that, because years ago, out at the fire department and police department on Narrows Road, we wanted to put up a tower, and the citizens were adamant they did not want it, and we explained to them, hey, somebody can come in here and put one in, and that's exactly what happened. We lost money on that, and they ended up building the tower additional to the electric company there. So that's why I was curious if we were getting any money from it, so.
Yeah, so these towers are literally just a metal telephone pole with the device inside of it. So
Right.
it's not, it wouldn't be a, full-on tower that you would lease
Right.
like the one we have next to the fire department. They're just smaller towers. And again, we could get into that if that's something that interests enough of the council.
I don't know
I
if
don't know
any
what-
other cities do that. I mean, I would hate to be the only one that charges people money for putting little,
Right. And that's kind of, the reason I started looking into it and asked Edgewood is what kind of revenue are we talking? Because I mean, if it's not worth the amount of trouble it takes the staff to get all that prepared, and
right.
I didn't think it'd be worth it, but I haven't found any cities right now that
do
do
that.
charge us a cell phone or a franchise fee for the small towers.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks.
Mr. Nason? Yes, sir?
Mr. Nicely?
If you let one person open, put that up, what's to keep from other people coming along and putting it up too?
There's nobody that's put the small cell phone towers in. It's just just on top of the telephone poles is what they're approving. They haven't been approved yet. They just requested initial stuff, so we haven't even gotten to the level of approval for what Verizon was wanting to do, which I thought we had actually passed that, but now speaking to Dave, that's not, hasn't happened yet. So that might be something we look in down the road, but the ordinance that was already prepared for us does not cover those at all. So I don't know the exact answer until we kind of get our first one in here. But there are, from what they told us, there's already them in the city that you just don't know about. There are some out there.
Matt, for clarification, if you could just, I mean, I know when this all came about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I think the concern was there would be these 8 to 10 foot poles in people's yards that would just be floating out there, and PDS said, hey, we need to figure out a way to regulate it. But really what you're talking about as far as what Verizon has asked for, I mean, it's like this tall. And
It's probably
it's a box.
2 feet, but
okay,
it's
but they're
8 feet
mounting
up,
it
so you
on
can't-
existing poles.
Correct.
So I'm just saying, I just for factual clarification, yeah, and it's different than I think what everyone anticipated.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing else there, then we'll move on. I did have a couple other small items I wanted to mention here this evening. One, I wanted to give everybody a quick update. I don't know how many of you know Tim Mulroney, who is the owner of TMS Construction, who does a lot of our road and sidewalk repairs here in the city. They're a frequent bidder, and they do get a fair amount of the work. Apparently, he was helping his daughter move recently and had some type of episode and lost consciousness, fell on his face, hurt his face pretty badly. But as he went to the hospital for that, then they found a lot of other health issues, I believe cancer, that had metastasized pretty severely. He was on life support, and as of a few days ago, I think the family had decided to take life support off. So very rapidly, digressed very rapidly. So sorry to hear that, but I wasn't sure how many of you might know him. I wanted to share it with you. Oh, the funeral was today? Oh, I didn't even realize he had passed. Oh my goodness. Okay. Thank you. So please keep his family. Kevin, I know still runs the company, or still works in the company. Keep them in your prayers, please. Yeah, Mr. Viak said that the most recent project they've done is the Serpentine sidewalk at the overpass. And they've done good work. I think the city's been consistently happy with the work that they've done. Another item here, I wanted to, again, make council aware of just something. I remember back, I think it was in 2014, Mayor Rouse had an award winner, I I think it was from Lloyd, who was, it was a girl who was able to be mayor for a day and kind of run the meeting. Well, I was approached by my alma mater, Covington Latin School, to see if they could auction off that privilege. Jack had said, did they pay to do it or pay to not do it? But we did in fact have an auction winner, and her name is Rebecca Trunnell, and there is not a date set yet, but I will keep council abreast of that. I think she'll do great, and I think she'll really enjoy that.
I'm sorry. How much did she pay?
It was $10.
Did she
I actually don't know the final amount.
Did she get any change back?
The final thing that I had here, I think we've got a resident from Forest. Sir, if you'd like to speak. I had received a phone call regarding some of the storm sewer issues between Glennacourt and Forest, and I welcome him to come out. If you wouldn't mind kind of giving us a quick overview. Are you prepared to speak about it this evening? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, please approach the mic there, and there's a little red button. If you can hit that, then we can hear what you're saying. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and hit the button, and then go ahead and just state your name for the record. Yeah. No, hit it. There we go. Now it's on.
You okay?
Got it.
Glennacourt is, I guess, about a 60-year-old street, and it's never had a storm sewer. And they attempt to collect the water by putting in asphalt curbs, which the garbage trucks run over and zip it out. My neighbor at 409, they constantly have water pouring through their walls in the basement. He has to open the garage door to let the water out. So I think it's an issue that should be addressed. And I'll show you some pictures here.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and state your name for the record.
My name is Jim Rule, R-U-E-H-L. I guess I've been a resident of Erlanger for 80 years. And Frank will verify that.
And I just, and we'll be happy to, if you want to pass the pictures around, we can take a glance at them.
Pictures. And it's a shame it's something that hasn't been done sooner.
I'll let you know that that is actually on the list for tomorrow. Mr. Wilson informed me earlier this evening that there's going to be a crew out there working on repairing the asphalt curb. And
well, the asphalt curb don't do anything.
Yeah, so
the trucks run over it, the garbage trucks run over it the next day.
Okay.
Flatten it.
Okay. Something that we can certainly look into.
Well, there's
something
pictures here with the construction that you did down in Fitzgerald, where you put in a new catch basin, which I don't think did anything, but it's there. And you spent enough money doing it, and I wish you would have done that up in Glennacourt.
I know something that we can certainly look into is the, upgrading those curbs to concrete curbs, which would certainly help.
Well, I wish you'd think about using the round curves instead of the square ones, but up there, I guess square would be good in order to get it done. But you can see the pictures.
And your preference is the rounded curbs because then if the
Erlanger needs curbs.
Trucks.
You need a curb machine is what you need in a concrete crew to do it. Because there's too many streets in Erlanger that don't have curbs.
I know Mr. Viox gave me a little bit of the history on Glenna, and that when that was done, it was not necessarily done to city spec when that was built, and so it's survived that way for a while.
A long time, 60 years. There's about 8 houses up there to drain into the street. Actually, you can see the rebar on the curbs that exist.
Okay. Thanks for taking the time to come out this evening. We'll look through these photos and discuss what some of the options may be. Thanks for putting it on our radar. I know one thing I think you had mentioned too was trying to get SD1 involved. Maybe extend the storm sewer. Mhm. Hmm. Well, again, thank you. If you can stick around for a few minutes after the meeting, we'll make sure we get all the photos back to you. If there's nothing else, then I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn. Motion by Mr. Burke, second by Mr. Blankenship. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All right, meeting adjourned.